recording. So I think you're already been put on mute, everybody. And if you want to go anonymous,
Maureen, I think you're on mute.
Maureen, can you unmute yourself?
We can't hear you.
how much did you hear?
We haven't heard the last 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
I think it's from when you put everyone on mute.
Okay. Oh, because I went on mute at the same time. Okay, so we're going to be recording the talk, which will be available on Chinner and Tame Friends of the Earth Facebook page for anyone who missed the presentation. Please also tell family and friends if you think they'd be interested, where they can access this. Slides of the talk will also be available on request. You may wish to remain anonymous while we're recording the talk, which we will be doing in a few minutes. So you can stop your video and remove your name when we start recording. To do this, use the functions at the top right corner of your own image. Hover the mouse over this area to locate the 3 dots. Click on these to reveal the functions to stop the video and rename yourself. The question time at the end of the talk will not be recorded, so you can resume your video and return to your name at this stage. The talk will last for about 45 minutes. During the talk, we recommend that you click on Speaker View, which you will find at the top right corner of your screen. You will then see the speakers when they are talking, and you'll see the slides when they come on the screen. Then you can return to Gallery View after the talk. So I know everybody's muted now, except for me. So do make yourself anonymous at this stage if you wish to. I'm now absolutely delighted to welcome Saskia Huggins and Barbara Hammond from the Oxfordshire Low Carbon Hub, who are presenting the first part of the talk tonight. And I'm going to ask them to give their own introductions. So over to Barbara and Saskia.
Thank you very much, Maureen. And if it's all right, I'm just going to share my screen. If you just bear with me one moment. Have to concentrate when I do this bit. Thank you so much. We really appreciate this opportunity to come and talk to you tonight. And for you giving up your time just listening to everyone chatting there in the introductions, appreciating quite how busy and how many hats you all wear. As Maureen said, Barbara and I both work for the Low Carbon Hub. I'm the Social Impact Director and Barbara is our CEO. But we actually met over 14 years ago, I think it is now, when we were both volunteering in our community just to the west of Oxford city centre, West Oxford, where we were both trying to see how we could help reduce our community's carbon footprint at that point by 80% by 2050. And Barbara was recruiting households who wanted to take part in a trial, and I foolishly stuck my hand up. And so we started, first of all, volunteering there, and working on our own homes wasn't enough, so we started doing community-owned solar, and then we put a hydro at the Thames at Oseney, Oseney Lock Hydro, some of you may have heard of, and it's all grown really from those first few projects that we did into what's now the Low Carbon Hub. So over the course of the next few minutes, I'm going to give you an overview to explain how the Low Carbon Hub's double carbon cut model works, and how we take investment from individuals right across the county and beyond and put that money to work to tackle climate change and to leverage more funding and more resources to do yet more work. And then I'm going to hand over to Barbara, who's going to talk in a little bit more detail about a particular project that we are currently involved in, and something that we launched yesterday. So if I just kick off by telling you a little bit about the Low Carbon Hub. So we're an Oxfordshire-based organisation. That's our a geographic focus, and we're a social enterprise. And we're out to prove that it is possible to meet our energy needs in a way that's good for people and good for the planet. What we do, the way we've operated, is we use investment and loans, and we use that money to install community-owned renewables across Oxfordshire. Projects like these solar arrays, which are on schools across the county. The panels are, of course, generating green electricity, reducing carbon emissions immediately. And the electricity we're selling at a discount, so the schools are saving money on their bills. And then that income from the electricity enables us to pay investors a modest return as a thank you for providing the capital. So immediately we've got sort of a nice virtuous circle going on there. We've now got almost 6,000 panels on rooftops on schools and businesses across the county. So that's quite good for the planet as it goes. In total, we've now got 47 renewable installations, and the map here sort of shows you where they're dotted. I was just looking at the Tame and Chinner area and realised we've got a little bit of a gap there. It's something we should be trying to rectify, I think. So these schools are, which we installed and we're managing, are producing 4.5 gigawatt of hours of green electricity every year. That's enough to power almost 1,500 homes. So, you know, combined with that, that does include the hydro, which we've also built at Sandford now. So Oseney, that project that Barbara and I first worked on, is the first community-owned hydro on the Thames, and Sandford is the largest community-owned hydro on the Thames. So depending which hat we're wearing, we can feel proud about our achievements in different ways. So collectively, that is beginning to add up to a nice chunk of green electricity. But I said we're also interested in being good for people. And the first people that we're very pleased to be able to help is those investor members who provided us with the capital in the first place. We wouldn't have been able to install those solar panels without people giving us their savings and using it to tackle climate change by now allowing us to buy the kit and pay for the installments that put those panels on the roofs. We've now got over 1,000 members, the majority of which are in Oxfordshire, although some beyond, who've invested almost £6 million in the projects that we have. Those panels that I mentioned are hosted by 40 different organisations, those schools and businesses, and they're getting a discount. And last year alone, that discount amounted to £60,000 for those organisations. So we're glad that you know, our investors bring the capital, we bring the know-how, those host organisations bring those roofs, and it's by bringing all of those together that we're able to carry out these projects. So that's the first kind of round of carbon cutting that we do, but it's a double carbon cut model because all of our profits, 100% of our surpluses, are used to then support further carbon cutting activity in our community. And that includes the 33 community shareholder groups. We are part owned by low carbon groups from across Oxfordshire who all own a £1 share in us, and we support them and a range of other works. So if I want to tell you a little bit more about some of that community benefit work that we do. So part of what we do is giving grants to those community groups who own us. And some of the examples we have here is on the left there, it's a pop-up shop which was run by a coalition group called COSAT, who were working on a campaign for healthy streets and active travel across Oxford. So we were able to fund some of the work that they've been doing. Other groups clubbed together and have paid for insulation on the building at Hogacre Eco Park. So we do a wider range of community grassroots-led carbon cutting activity. Other things we've funded are some great educational materials by a group, another coalition you may have come across called Kids Can, which are free to download, really great Key Stage 2 materials there, as well as thermal imaging training and a raft of other activities. So those are the grants that we give, and it's very much the work of those community groups who deliver that benefit. We're absolutely thrilled to be able to give them the cash, but it's their work that makes that work happen. We're also, though, funding another range of help and advice. So we can offer free energy audits for community buildings. So if you own a community building or run a community building in Oxfordshire and you'd like to learn how you can reduce your energy use and therefore your running costs, so improve that energy performance, we work in partnership with EIE, who are a group based out of Oxford Brookes, and we will pay for them to come and carry out a bespoke energy audit and give you an energy performance plan for your organisation. We've also got a help desk, so we provide quite a lot of advice and support to groups and individuals on all things relating specifically to community energy. That's really our expertise. Groups across Oxfordshire, but also beyond. So we get phone calls and requests for help from community energy organisations across the country, and occasionally from the odd international call. And we love it because we get to learn as much from what they're doing as they get to learn from us. So I've talked a bit about, we're powering up, we're generating the community benefit, which groups are helping us deliver, and a lot of collaboration there as well. To give you an idea, last year we, in total, from the surpluses from our roofs, generated £100,000, but we were then able to turn that into £1.5 or just under £1.5 million of spend, because we then use it to leverage other grants. So talked a bit about the roofs, which is the powering up. For us, just as important is powering down, so energy efficiency, as well as those audits. We're also carrying out a number of pilot projects. Cozy Homes is trying to understand how we can support homeowners in reducing the energy consumption of their homes and make their homes a happier, healthier place. The Less CO2 Schools programme we're running in conjunction with Ashton, and that's a year-long programme, again, helping schools better understand their energy performance. We provide them with audits and support and advice to help them lower their energy bills. Energy Solutions Oxfordshire is another pilot we're currently undertaking, which is particularly helping SMEs, so small and medium businesses, in helping them reduce their energy performance. Improve their energy performance, wrong way round. And that's very much grown out of some work that we've been doing called Ox Futures, which is looking at both innovation and energy performance in the SMEs. We've been able to offer those energy audits again to the SME market, thanks to some grants that we've received. And I've noticed that there's at least one in the Chinner area. They're all mapped out on a thing called the People's Power Station I can share a link with. So if you want to see what's happened locally, we can forward that on to you. So powering up, powering down, and almost all of that work that we do has got collaboration at its heart. Almost everything that we do is in conjunction with other community groups, with businesses, thanks to other funding sources, and from a wide range of partnerships. And I'm about to hand over now to Barbara, who's going to be able to tell you a bit more about Project Leo, which is our most ambitious partnership to date. Oh, sorry, there we go, Barbara, over to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Saskia. There was no chat as you were presenting, Saskia, so it was really, really clear. But if anybody's got...
I'll take it that way.
If anybody's got any questions, please do put them in the chat, and while I'm speaking, Saskia will pick them up and answer them directly in the chat channel, which you'll find in the bar at the bottom of your screen. So as Saskia was saying, we like using every pound, we like squeezing it till it's pipsqueak, and doing as much as possible with it. And we like to, that jargony word, leverage all of our money to do even more things with. And as Saskia was saying, by far our most ambitious project to date is Project Leo. Leo means Local Energy Oxfordshire. It's one of 4 government smart energy demonstrators that are happening in the UK that are funded by the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund. And for a social enterprise like ours to be involved in a partnership like this at the cutting edge of innovation, it's funded by Innovate UK. It's a £40 million project in total. We're working with very big, serious organisations such as Scottish and Southern Electricity Networks, who are our distribution network operator in Oxfordshire, both of the universities in Oxford, EDF Energy, which is another one of the big energy companies, the City and the County Council, and a range of SMEs who are developing new products for the smart energy market. And the only reason we can take part in a project like that is because we generate our own money. So the project is worth £40 million in total, but we have to provide 55% of that money. And we're responsible for just under half of that expenditure. So it's pretty amazing. What's it doing? Why is it there? Why is the government funding us to do this? Next slide, Saskia. It's because, as we all know, and as there is increasing consensus around it, which is really good to see, because we've been doing this stuff since a time when we were crying in the wilderness, it seemed, about the need to make this transition. We've got to move from this, which is a photograph of Didcot Power Station before we blew up all the cooling towers. We've got to move from this very centralised fossil fuel-based electricity system to, next slide please, this energy system, which is based on renewables, very decentralised, very close to our houses and our businesses, where there are lots of EVs, electric vehicles. Those have taken over from petrol-driven vehicles, and we now know, as of yesterday, that the target for not selling any more internal combustion engine vehicles is 2030. That's a massive change that we've got to make in 10 years. Every single house that we build new has got to be zero carbon. We need large energy sources as well, such as the Westmill Wind Farm and Solar Farm, Sandford Hydro. Offshore wind is going to be really important to the UK as well. But the big thing that we really are not getting our heads around yet, and which Project Leo is all about, is the fact that we need to make most of that change right at what's called the grid edge, that low voltage network that goes right into your house or right into your business. That's where the major change is going to happen. And Project Leo is all about working out how we make that change so that the electricity doesn't just flow from a massive centralized power station to your house, but there are flows going both ways from local generation sources to your house. Your house could itself be a local source of generation. We store it right where we need to use it. We store it in the cars and use it from the cars, even when they're not actually traveling anywhere. It's a completely different energy system. And it's really amazing to us getting stuck into this with Scottish and Southern Electricity Networks, how little they know about what's actually happening right on our doorsteps. And they're running that electricity system for us. So massive change that we've got to make. I personally take heart that we can make that change, because I look back to when Saskia and I first started working together 14 years ago. I look back to when I was a civil service servant working on renewable energy in the early 2000s, and I see the change that we've made already. I know that if we want to do this, we can do it because we have all the technologies. what's changed over the last 10 years is that we have the communications technologies, and we have the ability to store and manipulate huge amounts of data in a way that we just didn't before. And it's that's going to join all of these different bits together to make a new zero carbon energy system. Next slide, please, Saskia. And the way that we are taking part in Project Leo is that we are working with communities to work out what the models are for all of us to take action, all of us to do our bit, no one to be left behind. And we're doing that by putting new projects in and making the community benefits support community activities. And one of the things that we're doing is putting in new community-owned renewable energy, electricity generation through our community energy fund. And that's what we launched yesterday. And that's one of the reasons that we're coming to do this with Ethex tonight. We created the Community Energy Fund, although when I say we, actually Saskia developed the idea for the Community Energy Fund. It was just about her best idea ever, as it turns out. We've done it so that everyone can put their savings to work, supporting local projects to tackle climate change and help this transition to a zero carbon energy future. So people can use their savings to make themselves a little bit of money, you know, a fair amount of money from our point of view, we think, but put that to really good use, because it just cycles and cycles and cycles and cycles through making more and more community benefit happen over many years. So it's a really efficient way of using your money to do good. You can invest as little as £100. One of the things that we are be able to do now that we've got to the scale of having 1,300 shareholders is we can manage all of those really efficiently using online and cloud-based systems. And that means that the administrative overhead of managing even small sums of money is a lot less than it was when we started. So for this offer, we reduced the starting amount from £250 to £100. And we really hope that that might help younger people to get involved in a way that they've sort of struggled to do to date. If you've got a spare £100,000 stuck down the side of your sofa, then you can invest all of that. That's the maximum that we're allowed to ask people to invest using this community benefit society model. And yesterday we launched the latest share offer, as we've been saying, for which the target is £1.5 million. The total raise that we need to do the project at Ray Valley Solar is actually £3 million, but we're doing it in tranches of 1.5. The deadline for that first £1.5 million is the 31st of March next year. And we need to hit £1.5 million because that is will allow us to close the project financially and agree with and implement the offer that we've had from Triodos Bank for the long-term debt finance to go into the project. So it's really important that we get to that total of 1.5 million by the end of March. The target interest rate is 5% over the 20 years that normally people leave their money in, 4% for the first 4 years. And if you really need to, the great thing about the Community Energy Fund is that if you do need to take your money out because you've got a family crisis or for whatever reason, there's a process where you can ask to take it out, and we can replace your money in our next share offer. So
I'm going to step in and read the terms and conditions.
Okay, you go ahead.
Just to let everyone know that, and I'm sure Rachel will also go into this, one thing you do need to be aware with community shares. We're a community, we're a registered society, and the type of community shares that we have, you should be aware that if you are thinking to invest, your money isn't protected you need to be aware that you may lose all of your capital, and that the interest rate is not guaranteed, and that we also really hope that people will invest with us for the long term. It's something that your money can be locked up for quite a while, and although, as Barbara says, there is a process to withdraw your capital, it's not a quick one. So please don't invest anything that you cannot afford to be without, or that you might need for a big emergency quickly. So it's always really important to us, because whilst we really value people supporting us, we also want to make sure that people who are parting with their money and backing the work that we do so in full awareness of the facts.
Brilliant.
So back to Barbara.
No, that's great. Thank you very much. And it's really important that we get that right, because we don't want this model to be taken away because people get it wrong and people start losing their money. It's a fantastic model. This sort of society dates right back to the early days of the Industrial Revolution, when workers were clubbing together to be able to build their own houses. There's, the beginnings of building societies. And I just love the fact that we are using the same model to fund, to catalyse a green industrial revolution as was being used to help workers in the first industrial revolution. I just love that sort of play of history. Since we started the Community Energy Fund, because before that we used to raise money for a specific portfolio, and your money is tied to that portfolio for the whole duration of that particular set of projects. This is more flexible, and since 2018, when we started it, we've raised over £3 million into the fund. That brings the total investment in the hub to over 7 million, as we were saying earlier. With over 1,300 investor members, it's really important to us that we grow that number of investor members, because we don't want people just to have a financial sort of transactional relationship with us. We want to build a network of supporters, so that if the things that need to be done, we know we've got a massive network of people there that we can put a question out to or ask for help. And we've done that many times before. It's a really huge resource of people power as well as money power. And we use the money invested in the Community Energy Fund to develop new renewable energy, community energy projects. And we're particularly using it now to develop all of the projects that we need to demonstrate the new way of working at the grid edge, where we're sort of balancing the electricity grid right by where people are actually living. We can explain more about that in the discussion, how that actually works, how the electricity system actually works in discussion if we need to, or if people are not familiar with that. And so your investment really helps unlock the Innovate UK investment that allows us to do all of that innovation. And the particular project that the new share offer is focused on is our project that we've called Ray Valley Solar, because it's in the Ray Valley, the River Ray, and it gives us loads of opportunities for punning around solar energy. As you can see from the map on the right-hand side, it's 3.5 miles south of Bicester. It's the rather horridly pistol-shaped site that's bounded in red. You can see just to the left of Arncott. And it's going to be around 19 megawatts in size, which is going to be the largest community energy owned solar ground mount in the country, which is really exciting. It'll be 45,000 solar panels, which is a bit mind-blowing in itself. It'll power over 6,000 houses. So added to the 1,500 we already do, that starts making us you know, small but significant in the system in Oxfordshire. And it'll allow us to spend over the life of the project £2.6 million on projects in the community. And it'll be a key anchor load for Project Leo for testing out all of the new ways of trading energy and what we call flexibility services in Project Leo, how we can make that whole new energy system work. And as I've said, it unlocks the Innovate UK grant. It's very exciting. One of just an example while we've got the map up. One of the things that we also have as part of the planning approval for the site is approval for 20 megawatts of battery storage. But the grid connection for the site at the moment is the import, getting electricity from the grid onto the site, is very small, because you only need a small amount of energy to run a solar farm. You need a massive export, obviously, to get it all out to the grid. So it would be difficult to put batteries there because you wouldn't be able to charge them up overnight with the size of import capacity we've got. And so one of the things that we're looking at doing is matching with sites in the area to buy import capacity from those sites so that we can do the battery storage, help to store the solar power to be used locally, to buy in energy overnight when it's really cheap and then sell to people during the day and reduce their energy bills. And do all of that without having to increase our connection to the grid and put the money into fat wires and bigger switches. It would all go into the zero carbon effort. So that's just one of the things that we're going to be testing out. And it's really new, it's really challenging for all the big energy players. They've not done this sort of thing before, and we've got the opportunity to pioneer it with them.
And I was just going to add that what's extraordinary, building on Barbara's point, is having originally gone into this thinking so much of the challenges were around technology. Barbara's example there is actually contractual and commercial. So another thing that we're going to be able to test with this particular project is innovative new ways of things called power purchase agreements. So somebody like a large organization may be bulk buying its power, and somebody was commenting in the chat about whether or not we were reliant on the feed-in tariff, and that the feed-in tariff was a subsidy which enabled you to have some guarantee of long-term income for these very capital-intensive projects with very long payback periods. And with that gone, it can be very hard to make the finances stack up on some of these projects. But if you could start to use people signing up to agree to buy your power over a mid to long term, you could, in that way, you can give the financial security to a big capital intensive project, which enables you to build the renewables in the first place. So yeah, having thought a lot of Project Leo would be testing bits of kit, it's actually often testing bits of paper and new ways of thinking around contracts.
And also testing people and their ability to make decisions about new things. So a lot of Project Leo is about, it's got to be feasible technically, as Saskia was saying, but it's not so much about that. It's about commercial viability, and then it's about social desirability. Do people want to take part? Do people want to sign up to those contracts? Is what we're offering desirable to people? And is it desirable to the community that has to host these projects? Are there co-benefits for that community that make them want to have these things landing on their doorsteps? So lots of really interesting stuff. One of the great things about the power purchase agreement experiments that Saskia is talking about is that if we get this right, we think we're well on the way to being able to pilot a first one where we're working with a local institution, and yes, they're buying the energy from us, but as much as that, they're buying the carbon emissions reduction. So it starts having all sorts of lovely cumulative effects that we didn't really dream of when the feed-in tariff first started. And this is the landing page on the Low Carbon Hub website. There's also the Ethex website to go to if you want to invest. And if you invest, you'll help us to be running those trials to test the system and demonstrate the potential of a smart and coordinated local use of energy generation, storage and demand reduction, so that we can demonstrate how we can do this decarbonisation at a real pace over the decade that we really want to be aiming for, and which the government was pointing to in its 10-point plan yesterday, and just start providing our children and grandchildren with a really secure energy future that is going to be much healthier for them, much improved air quality, and also with solar farms like this, producing an energy harvest, which also allows us to really increase the biodiversity of the farmland that we're taking out of intensive production and putting into energy production, with a lot of biodiversity, landscaping and food production potentially, such as honey, alongside it. What is not to like about that? Lovely sunny uplands that we're heading towards.
Wow, Barbara and Saskia, there's so much to take in. My brain's absolutely buzzing. Thank you so, so much, both of you, for sharing your incredible expertise and your insights with us. It's been absolutely mind-blowing for me. I don't know about everyone else who's here with us this evening. Just so fantastic to hear what is happening through the Low Carbon Hub and what potentially we might be able to feed into. I'm sort of shivering with excitement, really. I can't wait to get going, but I think as time's getting on, there'll be a chance. I think questions are being answered as we go along. We will actually save the chat and the answers to the questions, which we can publish. So we don't want to miss any of that important information. There will be more time at the end, but I think now I would like to welcome Rachel Mountain. We're very lucky to have her with us tonight. She's Head of Marketing and Communications for Ethex, which is a positive savings and investment platform. Which is one of UK's leading ethical investing platforms. Combined, she's head of communications for Ethex and Energize Africa. Combined, both these platforms have provided more than £100 million from 20,000 individual investors to help finance over 100 plus community organisations and profit for purpose businesses in the renewable energy, sustainable housing and transport and eco-agriculture sectors, helping to protect people and the planet alike. So I'm now going to hand over to Rachel.
Thanks, Maureen, and good evening to everyone. Yeah, it's a great opportunity, and likewise, you know, we've been working with Low Carbon Hub for quite a number of years, and I didn't realise half the things, the really innovative things that you were doing, Saskia and Barbara. So yeah, great stuff. So I think what's great about Low Carbon Hub is it epitomises, and I'm going to start and share my screen, the kind of organisations that we work with. Which are, just bear with me for a minute. Can everyone see that presentation? Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Okay. You're going to go into presenter mode.
Yeah, I will do, Saskia. I'm on the Mac, so it's always like, right, better. Okay, cool. So yeah, just a bit of housekeeping. I mean, this isn't financial advice, so please, you know, if you have questions, speak to a financial advisor. Yes, if anyone has any questions, I can't really comment on individual financial affairs, but generally, you know, we can definitely talk about some of the considerations. So, you know, one of the most powerful ways that you can impact, you know, tackling climate change is with your money. And, you know, for us, we took part in a UK government study that sort of culminated in 2019, and basically kind of laid bare that there's huge amounts of demand from the UK population. So 70% almost of the people that they surveyed wanted to, when asked, you know, do you want to save and invest for a better world, said absolutely. The main issue and stumbling block was lack of products, lack of accessible products, lack of transparency, and, you know, kind of fear of greenwashing. You know, are you kind of saving and investing with the right kind of products? And yeah, it's no doubt really, you know, the finance sector itself is filled with jargon. You've probably heard about ESG investing, so environmental, social, governance investing, CSR investing, corporate social responsibility, ethical, sustainable, green, climate. You know, there's all sorts of ways to bamboozle people in terms of positioning savings and investment products as being ethical. And as we said, you know, greenwashing is also a bit of an issue. You know, there's lots of different products out there and organisations have different definitions of green. So one of the things that amazed me was a fund was marketing itself as being green, but they were still investing in companies that had fossil fuel based activities. It was just at a threshold that their revenue couldn't exceed more than, I don't know, 25% of their total turnover. So, you know, when something is green, you've got to look at the definition of the organisation behind it. And then, you know, there's this issue around positive investing, which, you know, Ethex is all about. And clearly, you know, Barbara and Saskia have outlined the positive impact they're having. Versus those funds that just screen out the bad stuff. So everything else is fine, but we'll just get rid of maybe the tobacco and the weapons manufacturing, but not really look at the overall positive impact that your money can have. Banks, you know, according to BankTrack, even after the Paris Climate Agreement, a lot of the international banks have pumped, you know, $1.3 trillion worth of investment still into high carbon assets. And then you've got this issue about, you know, a lot of people just don't feel they know enough about the finance sector and products, and it's shrouded in, you know, in mystery. So don't know how to get started, and, you know, are those products as transparent, and where's your money going, and do you have a connection? And it isn't always clear. And then, as Saskia's alluded to, there are a number of regulatory constraints. So, you know, you might say, okay, let's go to my independent financial advisor, and some of the investments kind of fit into this definition of being illiquid, risky. And so the FCA's view is that no more than 10% of your annual net wealth should go into these kind of investments. But some financial advisors, you know, can't recommend these kind of investments because they need to do their own due diligence on the investment opportunity. And, you know, sometimes the offers are open, you know, open and closed, and that's not really practical. So you've got all these particularly sort of systemic issues in the finance sector. So what are the things that people, you know, should be thinking about when looking at what they can do? And obviously with COVID, people's financial situations, you know, can vary pretty dramatically. Some people have had, obviously, you know, very negative impact in terms of, you know, incomes and, you know, redundancies and furlough. But other people, I think the ONS said, you know, about 40% of people were seeing a positive financial impact from not spending as much, from having a reduced kind of consumption. And so, you know, it's kind of thinking about that and then looking at what products individuals hold. So somebody might not have that much money to invest, but certainly will have a current account, will almost certainly have a pension. So which you know, what are the products that you can look at that you automatically hold? So current accounts, you know, are kind of the one of the first things for people to check. In terms of, you know, there's NGOs out there like Bank Track that are looking to try and keep banks very honest about where they're investing and where their money's going. And you can certainly access their website and see how your high street bank may or may not be performing. There are some good ethical banks out there. You know, we work quite a lot with Triodos, and Barbara's also mentioned Triodos in terms of providing some of the financing potentially around low carbon hub. So, you know, start to look at what are the ethical options out there, and can you switch your accounts. Somebody asked a question about savings. So at the moment, the savings rates are pretty paltry, you know, especially around cash ISAs, but you need to kind of think about your risk appetite versus your return. So with savings products, you know, you can have cash ISAs, stocks and shares ISAs, and the innovative finance ISA. Now, stocks and shares ISAs and innovative finance ISAs allow you to put your money into organisations that can have a positive impact, but they are much more risky in nature than a cash ISA. A cash ISA is protected by the compensation scheme, the financial services compensation scheme. So when you put your money in a cash ISA with the bank, it is completely, you know, rock solid up to I think about £80,000, and you know, is protected. So there's considerations around using your ISA allowance with stocks and shares, ISAs and innovative finance ISAs, and looking at maybe how you can build a, you know, a bit of a portfolio. So everyone has a ISA allowance on an annual basis of up to £20,000. And somebody asked in the chat function, some ethical investments, particularly bonds, not unfortunately the community shares, can sit within an innovative finance ISA, so you can get the gross interest on that. So it makes a fair return better by giving you the kind of tax efficiency on it. So a lot of people kind of say, well, you know, I'm not an investor, I don't know the first thing, but if you've got a pension, you are an investor, like it or not. And a lot of people just don't know where their money goes. You know, they've been auto-enrolled in a fund, the money goes away monthly out of their pay packet, and they're really not sure where it's going. So one of the things that you can do is obviously start and look at your pension. You know, look at what fund you're in. Is it an auto-enrollment fund? Are there other sustainable options? What are the you know, what are the fund managers doing in terms of investment? What's the performance of that fund? And start and look really where your money's going. There's some great guides out there in terms of pension funds that are more sustainable than others. So one of the websites that I'll sort of direct you to later is kind of Good with Money. They're a great bunch of financial well, they work within the finance sector, but journalists as well. And they're all about trying to de-jargonize and provide really straightforward guides about, well, how do different things stack up? How do these pensions stack up in terms of the sustainability? They've also, as we move on to talk about, you know, funds, they also rate funds and screen funds. So with a fund, you're investing in something that is managed by a fund manager. And again, you know, we talked about earlier, there's different definitions of how ethical that fund is. So you need to really sort of look at the small print of what the fund's investing in. What's the threshold of the fund? Because sometimes the funds, you know, the entry point can be something like £3,000. And again, it's sort of looking at organisations and guides to figure out, you know, kind of who's, you know, who is investing in the right kind of sustainable activities that you think align with your values. And so again, the Good with Money team work with 3D Investing to kind of dig under the bonnet of lots of different funds, see and rate them in terms of what they're doing, and give you a sort of sustainability, you know, score for them. And then we sort of get into, you know, direct investments. So this is kind of where, you know, Ethex, this is what we provide on our platform, this connection with people can match their values with them, you know, with the organizations they're investing in, and do it, you know, in a way that suits their level of risk, reward, and you know, liquidity. And you can start, you know, small. A lot of the platforms, you know, you can start from £50 and learn. But as Saskia said before, you need to be careful in that, you know, with most of these products, they are their risk is higher and the returns aren't guaranteed. So, you know, hence start small and yeah, see how you get on. So, like I said before, I mean, Good With Money is a great website, as is Ethical Consumer. They do a lot of the hard work for you, which is fantastic. So you don't have to go trawling through websites. So I've just kind of put the URL up there and listed 4 of their guides, which, you know, are really interesting and have some great findings. So first one's obviously their good guide to pensions. I've got, like other people, a number of different pensions, and so it's great to see how the different pensions that I've got kind of stack up, who's doing better, who's not. Then they've got the good guide to impact investing. So again, we talk about the different products that you've got, the different organizations that you can invest in. And what to kind of think about in terms of, yeah, the amount of risk that you're willing to take, the returns that you'd like to get, how long are you prepared to lock your money up for, and reputable providers where you can go and look at what organizations are raising finance on their platform. So yeah, that's, if you are considering, you know, looking at impact investing, that's a really good place to start. The Good Investment Review, that looks at a number of different funds from their sustainability perspective, and that just came out last month. And then somebody, you know, we've talked about ISAs. You know, the Innovative Finance ISA is a good way of being able to, you know, do tax efficient investing in some great organizations, but you need to be aware of the risks. And so it carefully kind of spells out how an ISA is different to a cash ISA or a stocks and shares ISA, and what you need to be careful about. And Ethical Consumer, again, is just a great website and kind of ranks lots of different products. So again, they will rank the performance of banks on, you know, carbon and sustainability. They will rank, you know, pension funds, and so you can you know, benefit from the research that those guys have done to kind of get a list of organizations and products that kind of fit with your sustainable and ethical kind of values. So one of the things I just wanted to briefly mention, last year we embarked and supported Friends of the Earth experiment innovation called Own It. And what, you know, we sort of talked about earlier, what was one of the problems is that people don't talk about money enough, and specifically women tend to not like talking about money. And so, you know, part of what Friends of the Earth wanted to do was try and break down some barriers and try and adopt a kind of peer-to-peer approach where people would come in, kind of go through the different types of products, get, you know, learn about risk, reward, liquidity, what are the options out there, and then be able to go back to their different local Friends of the Earth groups. And that, you know, was a kind of train the trainer approach, and we were really excited about the people that have gone through it, the impact that it had in terms of actually people moving their money around bank accounts and other kind of savings and investment products. But unfortunately, COVID hit. And so, you know, this year, the program, you know, hasn't sort of continued in its existing format. And, you know, talking to the team at Friends of the Earth centrally, you know, we're sort of looking at how this can morph in 2021, COVID aside, into being, you know, expanded and actually empower people to be talking about, you know, their money, where it's going, and just be much more informed about the choices out there and the options that people have. So this is just a bit about, you know, what Ethex actually does is, you know, we only list offers from organisations that are doing one of three things. They're either fighting climate change, trying to build resilient communities, and reducing poverty. And so what we're trying to do, given the problems that exist within the finance market, is say, is connect people through our platform directly to organisations that do some really great stuff like Low Carbon Hub, to provide them with the finance to scale and grow in that direct connection. And so, you know, we're all about fostering and empowering individual people to kind of do that. So just to kind of give you a flavour of the kind of organisations beyond Low Carbon Hub that we've currently got on at the moment. And, you know, it's Low Carbon Hub, as Saskia and Barbara said, only went live yesterday, and my figures are out of date. They've already raised well over £100,000. So hopefully that 1.5 million, you know, will be achieved, you know, in very, very short time.
We are genuinely in shock. Just can't quite believe that figure.
Let's hope we keep it going. And you guys have got the London Climate Action Week webinar tomorrow as well. So hopefully that will continue at pace. So that's great. And several of the other organisations that we have on at the moment are Mustard Seed Property. That's all about affordable housing for vulnerable people in society, as is Common Ground, and they were recently featured in the money section of The Guardian last weekend, and so got a massive boost, you know, in terms of trying to purchase a property in Edinburgh to keep in perpetuity, to provide key services to homeless people in Edinburgh and support network to get them off the street. You know, and likewise, Somerset's very similar, but we also have lots of renewable energy organisations. I mean, Barbara mentioned Westmill Solar, that we've also raised finance for in Oxfordshire. As well as, you know, things like Ecological Land Co-op that are doing better farming practices, working with smallholders, looking at the whole evolution of eco-agriculture, and giving people access to land in a fair and responsible way. So those 17,000 investors on Ethex, you know, have helped to do some really amazing things. You know, create green community energy, provide affordable housing that, you know, is held in perpetuity. You don't have big developers coming in and, you know, kind of making these humongous profits, addressing fuel poverty, and, you know, things around community regeneration and bringing assets into community ownership. The other platform that I'm responsible for, and Ethex works, well, Ethex owns with a Dutch-based impact investing platform is Energize Africa, and this actually emerged as a result of UK Aid and Virgin Unite, which is Richard Branson's philanthropic foundation, wanting to see if finance from UK investors could help bridge the gap to provide solar businesses in Africa with working capital finance that they needed to extend pay-as-you-go solar to individual families. Without that access to capital, then individual families couldn't afford these systems. And so you ended up with this kind of, you know, the kind of penetration of solar was being significantly hampered by the lack of finance. And so we blend money from UK Aid that, you know, as it's paid back, revolves to help more solar businesses in different African countries, along with Virgin Unite and, you know, Good Energies Foundation. So that's just kind of a flavour of some of the innovative things that are going on kind of overseas with our sister platform. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it apart from, you know, just to reiterate, it's your money and you have the choice in terms of what you want to do with it. So you can choose wisely and use it in ways that align with your values. Cool.
So thank you very, very much, Rachel. I think we really benefited from all your knowledge and expertise as well. I have to say, I had no idea just what Ethex has been facilitating and funding in the UK and overseas. It's so impressive and heartwarming. And I can see Barbara smiling from ear to ear there. Congratulations. I mean, that's a lot of money that's been invested in a day. I bet you can't believe it. So it just shows your platforms are working, and they're going to be working for the good, for climate change, for people, for poverty, right across the board. So it's absolutely terrific. I can't say how impressed I think we all are. So I think everyone here will, you know, is very grateful for hearing about it. And obviously having a think now about how we can also get involved, how we can invest, how we can use your services. There are lots of questions there. So if they don't all get answered, I'll be emailing to you. So I don't know if you can see any there, or has anybody at the meeting got some burning questions? Perhaps we can be unmuted now. Let's see if we could do that. I should be able to unmute everybody. I'm trying.
I don't think you can. Usually you have to unmute yourself.
So people beginning to unmute themselves.
Yeah.
Let's go on gallery view. Yeah, I think most people now are unmuted. Okay, so has anyone here got a question or hasn't had their question answered?
With the shares, this is a question to Rachel. It says withdrawable shares. I wasn't quite sure what that meant.
That might also be a question Saskia and Barbara can elaborate on. It's essentially a way of issuing shares for community benefits and co-ops and community-based organisations, and it's a financial instrument that isn't kind of as speculative as a normal kind of equity share. It's, you know, you invest irrespective of your, you know, shareholding. You get, you know, it's one member, one vote regardless of your size of investment. And usually it's modelled back where you invest your capital, and then you, depending on the share offer, and I'm sure Saskia can jump in with Low Carbon Hub, it's modelled back over a longer term period to give these organisations the kind of stability with their financing, where they pay part interest and then they model back when their capital repayments are paid back to investors. So it can be, you know, 10, 15, 20 years. They tend to be longer term investments. But I mean, Saskia, Barbara, jump in here because you're much more familiar with these instruments, having used them to finance your organisation.
So the shares that we're offering are withdrawable, and it sounds like it is a confusing term because it sounds like it's something that you can withdraw quickly, but actually what it means is that if you don't want to own them anymore, whereas a normal share you could just sell on or transfer to somebody else, the only way you can get your capital back is to return it to the organisation that it's invested in. So you can't, you know, if you had shares in Pfizer or AstraZeneca, you just go to a trading platform and sell them to somebody else. Whereas this way, the only way you can get your capital back is from that organisation that issued them. Also with the community shares, worth noting that the value of your share can never go up. It can go down, but it can never go up. They are really designed to help community and cooperative organisations to raise capital in a way that enables them to carry out the projects that they want to do, but they are not meant to be designed to get people rich quick. The value of those shares will not be, you won't, if you think a normal share might go up in value, and it won't. It will never go up in value. All you get back is that payment that you'll get each year as a thank you, and that's paid as an interest payment. It's a little quirk rather than a dividend payment. So Rachel's talking about tax efficiency. We all have, depending on our the amount of money that we earn from other sources, most people have tax allowances linked to dividends and tax allowances linked to interest payment. And so for some people, you would be able to earn that tax-free up to a certain limit because it comes out of your interest allowance each year.
So where it says on Low Carbon Hub, I think it said 4.5%. Does it say that?
We have a target rate that for the first 4 years, we will aim to pay you 4%. And then if after 4 years is when you have the right to ask to withdraw your capital. We can't promise we can give it back at that stage, but you can either then ask to have it back or your interest rate goes up to 5%. But as a target, we are an organisation that exists for the benefit of the community. And so as much as we absolutely adore and love our members, we're there to make their capital work really, really hard for the causes that they care about. So in this case, the environment, for that social and environmental impact. And we have to keep the organisation safe. All of the assets that we own, all of our profits are all locked for the benefit of the community. So we have to put that first.
That's explained it. I couldn't understand what the withdrawable shares meant. Thank you.
I'm going to pick up on some of the questions. Do you offer energy audits for schools, or is it just community buildings?
Any Oxfordshire school, in fact, would creep over across the county, particularly on schools. Who sign up to the Less CO2 programme would also be offered a free energy audit, and that's a completely free programme. And I think they are recruiting the next round at the moment. It's on our website.
And do you offer energy advice to homeowners?
We don't ourselves, but the Cozy Homes pilot that we're running offers, it's a whole house retrofit approach. It was really primarily suitable for people who are homeowners and who really thinking about sort of doing quite either long-term or relatively deep changes to their homes. But there is a free app, so it's a paid-for service, but at the beginning of that process, if you go to the Cozy Homes Oxfordshire website, there is a home plan builder, which is free, that anyone can go in. You can go and find your home, and it will start to give you free advice about the physical changes you could make to improve your home's energy performance. I can send you.
Do you give advice on government grants?
We don't, but depending where you are, there is, I would probably recommend either looking at your local authority website. So certainly Oxford City and a lot of the other authorities have quite comprehensive pages on their websites about the grants available to homeowners. And also both Oxfordshire and Bucks, if you're across the border, if you are eligible for various receipt of various grants or various support or over a certain age or vulnerable category, there is a service called Better Homes, Better Health, which again, I can send you a link. We don't run that, that's National Energy Foundation run that on behalf of some of the local authorities who can give you advice about grants.
Are organisations eligible for funding if they're outside Oxfordshire?
For the audits, the only our audits are restricted to Oxfordshire, or because some of our funding comes from West Mill Solar Co-op, we work in collaboration with them. It was if you're in 25 miles of West Mill, but unfortunately for you guys, they're kind of to the west side of the county.
And you know, if you were interested in a community building outside of Oxfordshire, just outside, does that mean you wouldn't be eligible then unless you were within 25 miles of, did you say Westmill?
Yeah, Westmill, which is over near Farringdon.
Yeah, it's the wrong side of Oxford for us.
Just over. If there is somebody looking and it's near the border, do contact us, because you know, if we do sometimes hear about other opportunities, so do contact us and we will let you know if we hear of anything.
And the last one to pick up from the questions was, do you support EV charge points as something you invest in?
We don't at the moment. No.
There is something likely to be on Ethex shortly in Oxfordshire around EV and sustainable transport.
Brilliant.
Any more questions for anyone on the screen?
I was just going to pick up on Andrew's. I think you're quite right. We don't want to play down the technical challenges at all. I think it's just where we were surprised in that the technical challenges are just the half of it. So it's also very much how that commercial side, that social desirability side. There's so many things involved in the energy system that it wasn't just about putting in new bits of kit. Isn't just
and I think we spend time talking about the other aspects of innovation because we tend to get fixated on technology, and the only point we're making is that the technology actually exists. Yes, joining it up has its challenges. And one of my observations about the government's 10-point plan published yesterday was that, again, it focuses on individual technologies and funding for those individual technologies, when actually it's just as much about joining them all up and helping people to benefit from them as it is about bashing on with nuclear or bashing on with hydrogen, or, you know, those technologies are developing, they're sort of there.
And Andrew's asking about the challenges getting agreements from the DNOs to power export, and so the whole issue of grid constraints, and part of Leo's understanding how you can use balancing and flexibility services to get around some of these constraints and alleviate them.
Yeah, exactly. So Project Leo is all about the distribution network and how you can make the change to the sort of energy future we're talking about without, or as efficiently as possible, spending as little as possible on bigger wires and bigger switches and just the infrastructure of all of that. And it is true that the DNOs need to change. They know that. And we need, I'm actually quite surprised to find one of our DNO colleagues saying bitterly about Ofgem. I think they're absolutely right. Ofgem is regulating for the past at the moment still, and not for the future. And we really need them to change and be supported in that change and be tasked to make that change by government. I think the DNOs really understand that they need to make the change to what's called a DSO, distribution service system, operator, where they facilitate the market in energy and flexibility service trading in a neutral way. And we really need the current price control negotiations being conducted really to be different, because they'll come in 2023 and they'll last for at least 5 years, which is most of the decade that we've got really to make inroads into these huge changes that we've got to make. And that's why I would say that the regulatory changes are much more important than really focusing on more technologies. That's sort of old view of innovation, in my view. It's a systematic change that we need. And you need to understand how all the parts fit together. It's a bit like test, trace and isolate. That's sort
Oh,
of sorry guys, just had to make it topical there.
So is anyone else with a question now? I think we've covered most of the things.
I have a question
just on heat pumps. Can I just say on heat pumps? One of the things really driving this change, apart from, sorry for the pun, driving change electric vehicles, is that we need to change to providing our heat from electrical sources if we need it. Heat pumps are clearly an important part of that, and we've got lots of areas of Oxfordshire that are off the gas grid, so it really makes sense for householders to be looking at that now. And one of the things that we are looking at in Project Leo is how you cluster together a sort of fleet of heat pumps in the community, and then can start helping those to be playing tunes in the energy system. So, and the other, I think
Charlotte's got a question next.
Yes, I'm sorry, it's not related to heat pumps, it's related to pensions. Just going back to that quickly, in terms of being an investor, whether you realise you are or not, if your pension is coming from a really big institution, my question would be that, and you discover that they're investing in things that are unethical, or certainly things that you wouldn't support, I don't imagine it's that easy to challenge it, is it? If you're, if you're not already drawing your pension, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it is tricky, and there's things like Share Action have got mentioned in the pension campaigns where there's different letters. If you're part of a employer-run scheme, you can try and put pressure on them. So say with Oxford University and things, they may be more open to having that dialogue with their pension scheme and moving those assets. But it really depends on the institution, and then it comes down to pressure and writing letters, and you can get them. You've got Richard Curtis now as built this campaign called Make My Money Matter, which is all about pensions. And then you've got, like I say, the Mention the Pension campaign, where it's all about getting this grassroots movement of people asking those awkward questions, and just then the power to try and shift organisations. But you're right, some organisations it could be a fairly slow glacial process. It just depends who they are.
Right. So you're saying you really need to have allies, and
if it's a big employer, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? So I think we'll draw the meeting to a close. I think we've squeezed as much as we can out of Saskia and Barbara and Rachel. I'm sure there's lots more they've got to say, but we're very grateful for the amount that they shared and the amount of information they've been able to impart. Food for thought. So my brain's buzzing. I don't know about anybody else, and I'm so delighted about your result for your first day for Low Carbon Hub. So that's absolutely brilliant, and hopefully you might see some more interest after tonight. You never know. And certainly we've got some addresses there we can pick up on to get advice or to register our interest for community building. So absolutely fantastic. I think you'd all join me in giving a thumbs up or round of applause. You can do it at the bottom on a reaction if you want to. So thank you very, very much. Very grateful. Yes. And do tell friends and family if you know this is something that they would be interested in, that they can see it on the Facebook, Chinner and Tame Friends of the Earth, or ask me for the slides which we've been sent for all the talks. So thank you so much.